Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, and of course, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, your chancellor of cheerfulness, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, your existential Mr. Rogers, and whatever names you all want to hang on me, add them to this list. Robert Meyer Burnett, I am once again robcasting at you from the Robservatory, you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity. This is Robservations episode number 639 on our march to the 666th episode. By the way, if you want to send song suggestions to me for the Spotify, is that a thing? Spotify playlist that I'm compiling about songs about the devil. And I will tell you, it begins with Charlie Daniels, the Charlie Daniels Band, The Devil Went Down to Georgia, and it ends with my very favorite song about the devil, the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil, and everything in between. I want to make... Are there 100 songs about the devil? I don't know. But if there are, I'd like to do that. And all of you, we're going to celebrate the great pop culture character of Satan. That's right, the devil himself, for episode 666, and portrayals of Old Scratch in popular culture. So if you have ideas, suggestions, thoughts, whether it's the Twilight Zone episode, The Howling Man, or whether it's Oh God, You Devil, or whether it's Al Pacino and the Devil's Advocate. I mean, you could do a debate. Al Pacino and Devil's Advocate, or, spoiler alert, Robert De Niro as Louis Safier in Angel Heart. Who is the best devil of all time in pop culture? Movies, TVs, shows, whatever. Who is the best devil? Who do you think? I think we're going to have to take a poll. Maybe a playoff. I don't know. Brackets. It's up to you. You tell me. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kind souls, gentle beings, all of you across the 28 known galaxies, whoever you are, wherever you're from, you are welcome here. This is the place to be. And I just want to point out, it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what your political party is. It doesn't matter your sexuality. It doesn't matter whether or not you're a millennial, Gen Z, a boomer, or whomever. The simple fact is, there is 1 week left before we live in a universe where the SNYDER Cut does not exist. That's right. For anyone who's paying attention, at 11 o'clock Thursday, the 17th, on the Pacific Coast, here, 11 p.m., Zack Snyder's The Justice League, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, will be available to stream on HBO Max. And let me tell you what I'm going to do. That's right, I'm going to be watching Man of Steel. Then I'm going to be watching Batman v Superman, or Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Cut. And I'm going to time it, including bathroom breaks and food. So right when the end credits, and I'm not going to, you have to listen to the music. You can't just cut out the credits. Doesn't count. You got to watch it all the way through. I'm going to start Zack Snyder's Justice League, assuming HBO Max does not crash. It's very difficult to watch WandaVision. I think that getting on to HBO Max at 11 o'clock might be a disaster, but I'm going to try. And I'm going to watch Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice first, and hopefully watch the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Now, here's the thing. Whether you like Zack Snyder's vision of the DC universe, I think that anybody, all fandom, all imagination connoisseurs must have some modicum of curiosity about this film. Why don't you want to watch it? I don't know. I think, look, it's a fan event. It's a testament to the power of fandom. Perhaps not since Star Trek fans were able to coerce a third season of the original series from NBC has the power of fandom been able, well, yes, Star Trek fans did get the Space Shuttle Enterprise named Enterprise. Unfortunately, that was misplaced because the Space Shuttle Enterprise never actually went into space. So sometimes a fan response can be perhaps a tad ill-considered. They should have waited. The first space shuttle that went into space should actually have been called Enterprise, not a test bed shuttle. But anyway, be that as it may, not since the second season of Star Trek was turned into a third season, albeit in a Friday night death slot at 10 p.m., that's okay. We still got that third season. We still got the Tholian Web. We still got Day of the Dove. We still got the Empath. We still got All Our Yesterdays. We still got Requiem for Methuselah, all because of fan outcry. There would be no Zack Snyder's Justice League. HBO Max would not have ponied up the cash to make it, which is what I was always saying. And by the way, I'll say it one more time. It's metal, man. It's metal. I'm going to fucking head out. We're going to bang our heads. We're going to listen to it alone and be like, oh! That's going to happen. It's going to be rad, and we should all sit back and just enjoy ourselves. Because by God, after... Oh, look what I've done to my hair. I've messed up my hair. Because I'm so excited! It's going to be fucking metal, man! Yeah! By the way, as an aside, there are certain YouTubers and other people that want to take up a collection for me to cut my hair. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. Never had my hair this long before. I'm just going to see what happens. I live with a hairstylist. You know, she will not cut my hair like Simon Le Bon's appeared in the Wild Boys video, which I said, why not? You know, a little mousse. It'll look great. Nope, she won't do it. 280s, she says. But I'm going to let it grow. I'm going to go for Sonny Burnett from season 5 of Miami Vice. It's got to be a little longer. Then we'll take care of it. Just so you know, you got to grow it out, then do the maintenance. My birthday's coming up. For May 15th, we'll unveil something new. Anyway, don't want to get sidetracked. Interesting bit of information released today that directly relates back to the Snyder Cut. Actually, something that ties in. Now, as you all know, Warner Brothers has been trying to make a Flash movie since 1982. They've had actually, I'm kidding, but directors come and go. They've had a hard time getting it all together, but the director of it, Mr. Muschietti, is going to come in and direct this Flash movie. Actually, he's already come in to do it. But today, news dropped that in my mind, in my fandom-addled brain, in my, desire to be a canonista, says one thing to me. It says that, you know what? Zack Snyder's Justice League, if nothing else, is going to have a sequel in the Flash movie. And why is that? Well, as everyone famously knows, there were people that were in the original Justice League film that Zack Snyder directed that once Joss Whedon took over were cut out of the movie, eradicated entirely. Many of those people were people of color. Not pointing fingers, just pointing it out. But one of those, and if you have not seen it, there is a clip, a little bit of a trailer that went online a couple days ago of the sequence in Flash where Barry Allen saves who later becomes, Iris West. And it is a lovely scene, and I think any red-blooded American male or any male or pretty much any female too, let's be honest, most human beings would say that Kiersey Clemons, who plays Iris West, is totes adorbs in that clip from The Flash. My God, is she cute. Who wouldn't want to meet her? Well, guess what? She, as it was announced today, is in the Flash film, which directly correlates back to Zack Snyder's Justice League. She was restored to Zack Snyder's Justice League. She's in the film. I don't know how much she's in the film, but at least she has a great scene where the Flash comes and rescues her, and she does look totes adorbs in that scene. She's coming back, which means, in my mind, that if you were wondering, The Flash is now a direct sequel to the Snyder Cut version of Justice League. At least in my mind, I hope in your mind too, because, hey, everyone's talking about it. Will there be? Will there be? Look, yesterday I was on a stream. We talked a lot about will there be, can they ever coerce Zack Snyder to come back and do Justice League 2? First of all, I'd say let's not get ahead of ourselves. We all know that Zack Snyder's Justice League ends on a cliffhanger. But what we don't know is will people like it? I mean, it doesn't even matter to me now whether it's good or bad. I will enjoy the whole thing, if nothing else, than to see this alternative vision. And I think it'll be puzzled over and looked at and discussed for years to come in fandom. But I'm very happy for Zack Snyder. I'm very happy for all the people that were staunch supporters of his vision of the film. I'm very happy for someone like Jason Kilar, who seems to be a very smart guy who's running Warner Media. And even though he got a huge fat bonus check, as he probably should have, good on him for making this all happen. It's only a win for everyone. But I do like the fact that everyone's discussing, will Zack Snyder come back? Will he possibly do Justice League 2? Well, first of all, I want to point out to everybody, you asked me to bring my industry perspective and industry experience into this conversation. And the idea is, could he come back and do a sequel to Justice League? First of all, you have to remember that Justice League was shot for whatever it was shot for. I've heard everything up to like $350 million. Zack Snyder shot Justice League. It was done. But it had a very big budget. Now, it was made, the film was released. We all know what happened. No need to rehash that. But when Zack Snyder came back and restored his vision for the film, they spent $70 million. I'll bet it was a cool 100, because why not? But let's just say it was reported $70 million. It would not, people need to understand, if they were going to make a sequel to Justice League, ever, if they're going to perpetuate the Snyderverse, HBO Max could not afford it. I mean, they could afford it, but they wouldn't be able to make anything else. HBO Max could not pony up the $350 million, maybe, dollars required to make Justice League 2. The only way you could get a Justice League 2 is if there was going to be a theatrical release worldwide in a non-pandemic situation where theaters were at capacity. That's the only way the economics work. The economics could never work to make a Justice League 2. Now, I am saying that as someone who said there'll never be a Snyder Cut, because who was going to pay for it? There wasn't anyone until HBO Max, and then when HBO Max came in, it existed. Well, then I changed my tune because the situation changed. Opinions, you can't, if you have an opinion, it's not immutable. It has to be changed based on the facts at hand. And at first, when I believed there would be no Snyder Cut, and half the movie pundits in the world thought that, was because there was no way we could see that it would happen. Even I said, who's going to pay for it? But when HBO Max came along on this channel back in November of 2019, I said, you know what? Maybe HBO Max could make it happen. But a sequel to Zack Snyder's Justice League, an actual Justice League 2, would require a lot of money. And HBO Max could not. It's not that they could afford it, but no one can. Even HBO Max could never justify that much money they would have to partner up with Warner Brothers. And here's the thing. Here's what I want to give Zack Snyder some mad props. He's got Netflix. He's done Army of the Dead, comes out in May. They're doing like a German prequel and an animated series. All of this is in production. Well, Army of the Dead's probably finishing up post and it's done by now, whatever. But Zack Snyder's in the Netflix business. The fact that they got him to come back and remember, he's not even being paid to redo Justice League. So I just don't see it happening. I'm happy for Zack Snyder. I think we all should be, because he's over with a place in Netflix that loves him, that wanted to get into the Zack Snyder business. So that's cool. That said, back to this idea. So I'd like to read this article, which is very, very exciting. I think it's exciting. Kiersey Clemons to star in the Flash movie. This was in Hollywood Reporter today. Tatiana Siegel published this at 9:30. The actress will reprise her role as Iris West, the romantic interest of Barry Allen. Kiersey Clemons has closed a deal to star opposite Ezra Miller in Warner Brothers' DC movie The Flash. The actress will reprise her role as Iris West, the romantic interest of Barry Allen, a.k.a. The Flash. Clemons portrayed the intrepid reporter West in Justice League, but her role was cut by director Zack Snyder. Come on, Hollywood Reporter. Be better. You know her role was not cut by Zack Snyder. Her role was cut by Joss Whedon. But anyway, we know that. Her role was cut by director Zack Snyder back in 2017 before he turned the film over to Joss Whedon. Was it, though? Come on. Snyder added her character back in recently for his upcoming cut, which debuts on HBO Max on March 18th. First of all, as we know, when Zack left, when he left the building, he took his cut of Justice League with him, his black and white, unfinished, unmixed, some special effects cut with him. She was in it. So he didn't cut her out. Just pointing that out. Michael Keaton, who is no stranger to the DC universe, having starred as the Caped Crusader in Tim Burton's Batman movies, will reprise the character for the film, which will begin shooting in London in April. Oh my God. Now, I have to say, I am kind of deliriously excited for this movie. Not only is it delving into the multiverse, but I really like The Flash. I've always liked The Flash as a character. Anyway, I'm so excited for this. Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton, Iris West, Kiersey Clemons coming back. Amazing. Anyway, The Flash, which is DC's latest standalone film. Standalone? Really? I mean, how many movies is it connected to? It's not a standalone movie. It's dope. It's multiverse, brah. Which is the latest standalone film, joining Wonder Woman and Aquaman, is scheduled to open November 4th, 2022. It director Andy Muschietti is helming from a screenplay written by Christina Hodson. Barbara Muschietti and Michael Disco are producing, while Marianne Jenkins is serving as executive producer. Plot details are being kept under wraps. In the comics, Alan and West grew up together after Alan's mother was killed and his father was blamed for the murder. They eventually marry, and they frequently work together to neutralize villains. After starring in a series of Sundance breakouts, including Dope. By the way, Dope is so good. And one of the director of Dope, who's working on Mandalorian, was going to be a director on The Flash, but left over creative differences. After starring in a series of Sundance breakouts, including Dope and Hearts Beat Loud, Clemons seeked to major studio fare with Disney's most recent iteration of Lady and the Tramp. Other credits include Amazon's The Only Living Boy in New York and Universal's Sweetheart. She is repped by UTA Range and the law firm Jackaway, Austin, and Tyerman. I don't know about you, but in my mind, that makes The Flash, which they're calling a standalone movie, and they're saying Zack Snyder cut her out of the film. No, this is a multiverse film. I see this film now as a direct sequel to the Snyder Cut. It is not a standalone film. You now have a real connection. It's not just Aquaman, tenuous connection. It's not going to be one line of dialogue. I think this is going to actually, and by the way, why wouldn't it be? Because it's a multiverse. The Flash is a multiverse film, which is tied to the Zack Snyder universe via Ben Affleck and the Flash. And of course, Iris West strengthens that bond. And, you know, Tim Burton, this is a multiverse film. This is absolutely, in my mind, a sequel to the Snyder Cut. Or maybe it's Snyder Cut adjacent. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but it's pretty interesting. And I think it's pretty exciting that this is the case. I think it's a big victory for everybody. And I'm excited. You know, this film has been gestating for so long. I'm just happy it's getting made. But the fact that it is a multiverse film and it's tied to multiple iterations of Batman, and it is definitely tied to, I mean, if they're doing the Flashpoint paradox or whatever, if the Snyder Cut ends as some people have theorized with Aquaman and Wonder Woman dead, maybe this is the movie that would revive them? I don't know. We'll see. Very exciting. And all I know is that at 11 o'clock next Thursday, Pacific time, I will be watching the Snyder Cut after I've watched Batman v Superman and Man of Steel. So, very exciting. I'm excited for this. I've been waiting for this movie. John Schnepp and I talked a lot about this movie. Rest in peace, John. He would have loved living today. I miss the guy every day. But this is exciting. You know what else is exciting? You people are exciting. My God, there's a lot of really interesting stuff here. Beginning with Mario Lopez. Mario says, "Hi, Robert. My name is Mario Lopez from Portugal. I love cinema, and my favorite director is Zack Snyder. Some years ago, I wrote this article on IMDb in Portuguese. Unfortunately, it was read by few people. And yes, unfortunately, it is the only article I have written to date. So, here is my article on the movie Sucker Punch, which I called Condemned to be a Cult Movie. I hope you will read it in one of your videos on YouTube, especially now that we are facing this fantastic event that is the exhibition of the Justice League Snyder Cut on HBO. Continuation of a good job. I love to hear what you have to say and share, and I really admire your positive spirit, something that seems to be getting more and more rare. Thank you very much, and kind regards, Mario Lopez from Portugal." Here is Mario Lopez's article that he wrote, his piece on Sucker Punch. And yes, I do have 2 Sucker Punch Hot Toys dolls, including Baby Doll, which I think needs to be on the shelf, at least in honor of Mr. Snyder. And I think probably his Man of Steel figures do too, because I have 3 Hot Toys Man of Steel figures. And now, Mr. Lopez, take it away. Sucker Punch is, as the title itself indicates, an unexpected blow for which no one would be prepared, and for that reason will be condemned to all kinds of injuries. Zack Snyder, director of films like Dawn of the Dead, 300, and Watchmen, does not need to prove anything to anyone, but this is the first work truly his. Many will try and classify Sucker Punch as something similar or inspired by another film, be it Matrix or Origin or even others more absurd, such as Charlie's Angels or some exploitation movie. If I were to take the path of comparison, I would choose Flying Over a Cuckoo's Nest, One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest, or Vanilla Sky. Then everyone will try and identify the target audience of this film. Again, the obvious, young males, consumers of video games, which is not true as can be seen from the statistics on the IMDb itself. Zack Snyder presents this work in several references, ranging from Japanese animation to visions of world wars mixed with brushstrokes by J.R.R. Tolkien, but his whole imagery has a common denominator: the magazine Heavy Metal. and in very particular, the paintings of Louis Royo. At least, that's how I see it. But Sucker Punch does not live only from influences. It also presents a fantastic photograph. It has a wonderful color palette, it is great in technical terms, and has a brilliant soundtrack. But the best thing about the film that makes people think, discuss, exchange ideas, of course, is if they manage to overcome some prejudices that they may possibly have. Incidentally, and still in this sense, I recommend that you see the film more than once. Not only because of the complexity of the story, but also because of the many relevant details that you will find throughout the film. I couldn't finish without mentioning that Note 10 refers to the director's version, a version where you can see some absolutely brilliant scenes which should have been viewed in cinemas, even if audiences were lost for that purpose. I'm thinking in particular of the scene between Baby Doll and High Roller. Watch this film with an open mind, and be attentive to all the details that are presented in it. I've seen the film many times and have always discovered new things with each viewing. And it is so curious to see that there are several interpretations of what the film is, what happens in it, and how it ends. It is a film to think and debate. Mario Lopez, Portugal. Well, Mario, I have to say, you know what? I've only seen Sucker Punch once in the theater. And I will admit I can't say that I liked it as a movie. I certainly did love it as an experience. It kind of washed over me. I love the visuals. I love the music. I love the soundtrack, which I own. And I own 2 Hot Toys dolls from the film, action figures. Call them what you will. I mean, they're girls. They're girls. I literally bought Baby Doll, a hot young chick, basically dressed as a Sailor Moon fan, a Sailor Moon cosplayer who comes with big guns and a sword. What's not to love? But I did feel guilty buying it, just so you know. When I saw it, I didn't know what to make of it. I kind of let it wash over me, but I'm like, I enjoyed watching it, but I didn't love it as a film. But to be fair, I only saw it once. And hearing from you has made me want to revisit the film, although I don't own it. I don't own Sucker Punch on Blu-ray. So in honor of your letter, let's go to Amazon, shall we? I mean, you can't see me doing this, so you'll have to take my word I'm doing it. But we're going to go to Amazon, and I'm going to go, maybe they did a Sucker Punch 4K, right? Ooh, it does say Sucker Punch 4K. What is there one? There are many. Ooh, there's an extended cut of Sucker Punch, but I don't see it in 4K. But in honor of you, there's only 4 left in stock. And by the way, I have nothing to show this week for Let's Get Physical Media. But bam, I'm ordering the extended cut of Sucker Punch. And click. There you go. Well, I want to thank you, Mario. I'm going to delve into this one more time. I'll check it out. Because of you, I now own, well, I don't own it yet, but I've paid for it. I own Sucker Punch. That's how it's done on this channel. Thank you for writing in. I appreciate it. Kenny Crayley Jr. writes in, Dear Robert, hey, Robert, and members of the Post-Geek Singularity, I'm back again with another letter. And for today's letter, I wanted to talk about my love for comic books with DC Comics and Marvel, and why the characters from the big two are so different. I did not start reading comics starting with DC until the late 80s, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I began with the Triangle era of Superman. That was the Triangle era was when they numbered the various Superman books so you could read them in chronological order. Superman Action Comics, The Adventures of Superman, with writers and artists like John Byrne, Dan Jurgens, Jerry Ordway, George Perez, and such, and the 90s X-Men comics from Chris Claremont and then Jim Lee, etc. My Marvel Comics reading did not start until the early 2000s, and then after that started to read about other characters like Justice League, Supergirl, Green Arrow, The Flash from DC, and the X-Men, Spider-Man, the Avengers, Captain America, etc. from Marvel. Characters, to me, they're more based in the real world and more street level and less godlike. With DC Comics, they are more mythic, maybe more realistic and stand for hope and truth and justice and, of course, the American way. What makes these characters to me so great, especially the heroes, is, for example, Superman, Supergirl, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Captain America. Both companies, the characters have a willingness to stand up for what is right and what will always try and do the right thing, even though sometimes the right thing may not be the best thing to do. Superheroes inspire us to be the best versions of ourselves, and that is what I love about them in any form of media or comic books, comic book movies, TV shows. Also, I love collecting comic books in omnibuses, trade paperbacks, absolute editions, epic collections, etc. Well, Rob, those are yours. Thanks, and keep up the super amazing work. Sincerely, longtime watcher, listener, Kenny Crayley Jr. from Ohio. Well, Kenny, I mean, I think you're hitting on something. It is a long. When I was a kid, the argument I've talked about this on the channel before. In my neighborhood, I was like the only Justice League fan. Everyone else loved the Avengers and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and for whatever reason, as a kid, I couldn't draw very well, but I loved drawing superheroes, and I would always start with the insignia on their chest. So for me, DC Comics characters, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Aquaman, although his logo was on his belt, Green Lantern. I loved the insignias on the chests of these characters. Marvel characters, I mean, Spider-Man did have a spider, Captain America had his star, but for the most part, and I guess you could say that Iron Man it wasn't really a logo, it was, his arc reactor that kept him alive, but it was the DC Comics. I would always draw the characters around the insignias, and I did like DC more than I liked Marvel at the time when I was a kid, because it was sort of strange to me that these characters Marvel characters had mundane lives. And it wasn't until really when I started reading comics again when I was around 13, when I got into Teen Titans and X-Men. And what I thought was really funny about Teen Titans and X-Men were the Teen Titans had domestic family lives. Donna Troy had her husband Terry, and they had domestic bliss. So she was a superheroine that was also married. And the X-Men they had lives too. They had romantic lives, they had civilian lives, and it was interesting to read comics where the civilian lives of the characters would intertwine with their superheroic lives, more so than DC. I mean, you seldom saw Bruce Wayne, like a whole issue about Bruce Wayne being Bruce Wayne. He was Batman. Whereas a Teen Titans issue could deal with the characters in their daily lives, more so than any other DC comics ever did. And then with Marvel, you frequently saw a little bit of overlap, especially with the X-Men, because it was more of a soap opera. So maybe that's what brought me back into comics, was both DC and Marvel seeming more grounded and down to earth. But I loved the DC characters when I was a kid because they were godlike. The Marvel characters were not; they were people that were enhanced, whereas a lot of them were born normal. Whereas a lot of the DC characters, like Superman and Wonder Woman, they were basically gods. I mean, sure, other people like Hal Jordan got his ring, and Batman was forged. He became the Batman. The Flash had an accident, but the Martian Manhunter was born the way he was, and so it was a different vibe. But I think they both work now. But I understand where you're coming from. I certainly was on the receiving end. Friends of mine liked growing up Marvel comics better because I feel they could relate to them more. Where I was a kid, I always gravitated toward people that were like Captain Kirk, good at his job. But anyway, a nice letter. Thank you for writing in. I appreciate it. Casper Arrow writes in. Casper Arrow says, hello, Rob. Firstly, it is important for me to clarify that this letter is by no means a diss to my fellow film fans and imagination connoisseurs. Like the rest of my fellow Robservations viewers and John Campea Show viewers, I love all sorts of films, and I embrace different opinions. I especially value your opinion and others like you and John Campea who engage in the fan film community and let their voices be heard and create communities of their own. So thank you for that. Likewise, I want to praise the passion of my fellow imagination connoisseurs. Seeing people from all over the world coming together for a shared passion of film and storytelling is amazing. With that said, let's get into the main topic of my letter. Comic book movie fatigue. I've never read any comic books whatsoever, and thus I never had any attachment or deep-rooted passion about things such as the MCU. However, I have enjoyed every single movie Marvel has released up until this point, except Hulk. That movie sucked. And I honestly did not think that comic book movie fatigue would ever hit me. The movies are just too much fun. Unfortunately, fatigue has hit me. I'm saddened to say that it is not the movies themselves. It is unfortunately the fan film community that has given me comic book movie fatigue. Let me explain. For a few years now, comic book movie topics and viewer questions have been a stable part of both you and John's shows, and for good reason. The films have been mostly awesome, very successful in terms of box office, and I get why people who have read the comic books are almost in disbelief over the quality of these films, and they love to speculate and theorize about them. Unfortunately, in my opinion, comic book movies have taken too much of the spotlight in the fan film community and are overshadowing other films. I, sir, do not disagree with you. We certainly park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. As film fans, I believe it is important, almost our duty, to make sure that older films from the 1920s to the 1960s are not forgotten, and that independent, smaller films are given their share of the spotlight. If we don't talk about them, who else will? Some of my friends who are not avid filmgoers or film fans love the MCU and are sure to post a picture on social media of them in the movie theater ready to watch the next Avengers movie. But I can assure you that none of them watch Stanley Kubrick, Andrei Tarkovsky, or Billy Wilder films. It is our job as film fans to remember films made by directors such as those I just mentioned. It is our job as film fans to make sure that smaller independent films are given some of the spotlight. It is our job as film fans to remind ourselves and those around us that there are so many great films outside of the superhero genre. Don't get me wrong. I myself love comic book movies and would, up until recently, happily engage in a conversation about the Joker, Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, since the release of WandaVision, my lust for talking about comic book movies has completely disappeared. Since the release of that show, a huge part of every topic and question in the community has revolved around the MCU and what might happen. It has been going on for 9 weeks. As the show had 9 episodes, and week by week I've seen my own interest in the show and the MCU as a whole, and the film fan community and shows such as the John Campea Show, I noticed you didn't say this show, diminish drastically. I tune into yours and John's show every day, looking forward to film fans talking about a diverse range of films from different decades, countries, of different genres. That's what I love. But especially over the course of WandaVision, I have seen that diversity almost disappear to a point where every other live-action question is about the MCU. If Marvel keeps their intended release dates for various IPs, we will be getting some form of MCU content every week for the remainder of the year, and I truly fear that I will no longer be a part of a diverse fan film community, but simply be a part of a Marvel superhero fan club. It saddens me that I no longer look forward to hearing the live questions of my fellow film fans, as I have to listen to about 10 superhero questions for every one question about films outside the genre. I know that's an exaggeration. Again, I love that people are passionate about comic book movies and want to share their theories and feelings about such shows as WandaVision, but every time a question comes up about the MCU, I feel like John Hurt in Spaceballs? Oh no, not again. One positive coming out of this trend is that it has made me appreciate the almost rare questions that do not relate to comic book movies even more. Like the other day when you read out a great letter by a young man, I believe his name was Alex, who, like myself, is a young man in his early 20s, oh, I love this letter, who loves older films. I appreciated Alex's letter, and I found it comforting that others are taking it upon themselves to share their love of films outside the superhero genre. I'm sorry if anyone has been offended by my letter. That was no means my intent. I simply wanted to express my feelings and concerns. Thank you, Rob, for always giving us honest and great content, and thank you for allowing me to be part of this community. Best regards, Casper. Well, Casper Arrow, guess what? You and I, my friend, we park our shuttlecraft in the same shuttle bay. I feel your pain. Now, here's the thing for me. My favorite movies of all time are not genre films for the most part. And it is frustrating that many film fans who came of age, I mean, I think we have to remember the era that we live in. As much as I like to talk about the olden times when people cared more about cinema, we are a culture that is incredibly homogenized when it comes to our cinematic tastes. When I was a kid growing up, I mean, I was a cineast. I was a snob. I was a film snob at 13. You know, I mean, I love my science fiction, fantasy, and horror, but I also loved world cinema, like you mentioned, Tarkovsky, Kurosawa, Francois Truffaut, Jean-Luc Godard. You know, I was watching movies from all over the world because I loved cinema. And while I did like science fiction, horror, and fantasy, I always have, there were few genre cinema works that were also great works of just cinema. I mean, I dare say I go back and look at a movie like Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, which is one of my favorite, I call it a horror movie, and it is. I think it's just a brilliant film. Same with William Friedkin's The Exorcist. They're genre movies, but they also work on so many different levels, and they truly are great works of art, of the cinema. Now, as much as I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I don't put them, and I understand what Martin Scorsese was saying, the Marvel Cinematic Universe works on a certain level. But I'll tell you, and I mean no disrespect, because I have a whole, literally, an entire shelf of, there's got to be at least 30 different Blu-rays and 4K discs of all the Marvel movies. More than that, because I have 3D versions of a lot of them. I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they are not, I don't love them the way I love, say, Michelangelo Antonioni's Ennui trilogy. I don't love the Marvel Cinematic Universe the way I love La Notte, L'Avventura, and The Eclipse. I don't. I don't find the same value in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I find in Truffaut's Antoine Doinel films. Whether I'm watching Tarkovsky's The Mirror, Nostalgia, Andrei Rublev, The Sacrifice, Solaris, and Stalker, you know, those films have a lot more to say about what it means to be a human being. However, I mean, I see the Marvel Cinematic Universe as they're fun. They're like going to an amusement park. And I've always loved the comic book characters since I was a kid. To see them all writ large on the big screen it's fantastic. And I think they are tremendous entertainments. They're fun, they're populist, and I love them. But, you know, give me all that jazz. If I was stuck on a desert island and I could take my 40 or 50 favorite movies of all time, it's so funny because if I was stuck on a desert island, I would take Infinity War and Endgame. I would. But other than that, you would not be seeing a lot of movies that traditionally are the fare that we are discussing lately. But I think you're absolutely right. And I think I love fandom. I've been a part of it my whole life. But I think fandom, in a way, more than ever, needs to broaden their horizons and start looking into the rich cinematic history of our world. The films of the 20th century on a global level, watching the art form in its embryonic stages and where it wound up and where it's taken us today. There's so many wonderful stories. There's so many influential films. There's so many movies that would resonate with people that they're just missing out on. So I think the sentiment of your letter is 100% correct. Very, very much. It's very well spoken. And I thank you for writing in. And I completely agree with you. I don't know how we're going to combat this. All I can do is bang on about how much I love a certain film. Like, look, anybody who's watching this show right now, I don't care what movies are your favorite. Do me a favor. I'm not going to tell you to watch the Ennui trilogy. I'm not going to tell you to watch Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker, because those are deep end films. They are. Deep, deep, deep end movies. But I would ask you this. Two of my favorite films of all time are Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve. Now, they're both black and white. They're both from, well, the mid-century, mid-20th century, especially All About Eve. I think All About Eve is one of the most wildly entertaining movies I've ever seen. But I would ask all of you, if you've never seen them, just do me a favor, stick with them. Just resolve yourself to the fact that Rob Burnett has asked you to turn over 4 hours of your life to these two movies. Sunset Boulevard, All About Eve. They're both about show business. One is about Hollywood, one is about Broadway. But they're both movies that have unbelievable characters, unbelievable acting, unbelievable writing. Just do me a favor. Watch Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve. Go into them knowing they're black and white. They're made in the 50s. They are dated. But just if you clear your mind and put yourself in the mindset of, I told you to do this. It's an assignment. It's homework. If you've never seen the films before, just do it. Do it. Do it now. Do it for me. Just watch Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve. And when you watch them, let them just give yourself over to them and follow along. I guarantee you'll enjoy these movies. If you just put aside all your prejudices and just go in. I know it's not in color, and I know it's different than what you've seen, and report back. I would love to hear what everybody thinks about both Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve. Billy Wilder, Joseph Mankiewicz, come on. By the way, All About Eve was the best picture of 1950. So check it out. Tell me what you think. It might lead you somewhere. I promise. It's not going to hurt. Not going to hurt. So, this letter comes from Charles Howes. And this is just it's 2 sentences, basically. Here it is, Charles. Charles says, I think they led us on with the 2 post-credit scenes to lead us into the next thing. Well, Charles, I don't think you're wrong. However, I think there's more to it than just that. But I have to give it up for you for writing in a 2-sentence letter. Thank you so much. And I agree with you. I agree with you. But I think there's more to it than just that. This one comes from Jim Hart. And I love that it's from Jim Hart because that was the name of William Peterson's character, Willem Dafoe. William Peters' character, Richard Chance, in To Live and Die in L.A., his partner that was killed was named Jimmy Hart. I don't know if that's a reference and an in-joke and you were testing me, or your name really is Jim Hart, but now I tell you why I like your name. So there you go. Hello, Rob. I was watching your latest Robservations, and the esteemed Stubble McShave wrote about an interesting concept he was working on for a short story. He wondered, as I think you did in your reply as well, if this concept had been used before. I am here to say yes. It was in a novel I read a couple of years ago, and it was called, and it was written by, damn, what's the point of reading books if you can't remember all the details years afterwards? Fortunately, I use Google, and while I still haven't found the title I was looking for, I think this might interest you and Mr. McShave. The concept is called the Lightspeed Leapfrog, when people aboard generation starships or people frozen in cryosleep reach their destinations only to find, hello, while they've been on their long journey, their society back home has developed faster than light travel and has arrived ahead of them long before. Examples in books and TV can be found on All the Tropes Wiki, and here is the website. Thanks for continuing to help us stay sane with your channel, Rob. What a great letter, Jim. I love this. Lightspeed Leapfrog is an actual trope that has a term. My God. Amazing. Well, let me put that in there. I just put that into the live chat. So everybody check that out. Lightspeed Leapfrog. See, I learned something every day. I didn't know that was the name of a trope. By God. By God. This letter comes from Desmond. Are you my constant? Anyway, hi, Toy Man. I hope your quadrant of the space is doing well and keeping healthy. I was curious to understand the process of how individuals like William Shatner, who portrayed Captain Kirk, or Andrew Robinson, who portrayed Elam Garrick, were able to write book stories for the properties that weren't their own. How would the rights work? Would public domain play a factor in this process? Would royalties for the books written be a never-ending payment, or would the owner of the property buy out the creator of the subsourced creation? Your thoughts. Kind regards, Desmond. By the way, he didn't call himself the constant. I did. Desmond, a great question. So what Desmond is referring to is both Andrew Robinson and William Shatner have written Star Trek novels. Shatner, along with the Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens, wrote 10 Star Trek novels. 3 different trilogies that dealt with Captain Kirk, and 1 Starfleet Academy book that was way better than Star Trek 09. But yeah, so, and then Andrew Robinson wrote a great Deep Space Nine novel, a great book called A Stitch in Time. So Desmond's asking, how could they do this? Well, listen, all of the books that they wrote were published by Pocket Books under the auspices of Paramount and CBS, the rights holders of Star Trek. So what they had to do was, in order to get green lit, they would have to pitch them. And there's a great guy who works now. He's been bumped up the ladder, but there's a great guy who came out of Star Trek licensing named John Van Citters. And one of the things that John Van Citters did, and for someone like myself, John Van Citters was, he was very much active in promoting the publishing end of the Star Trek franchise. And he did a great job. And there is a core group of authors that told stories that were post-Dominion War, people like Dayton Ward, or people like David Mack. I mean, there's so many, Keith DiCandido. There's a lot of great people, Christopher Bennett. Just the Star Trek publishing empire is something that never, I think, gets its due. There's some great authors who have done great work expanding the Star Trek universe, all of which is way better than anything they have done on television through Secret Hideout. Sorry, but it's true. And because these people were Star Trek acolytes, I mean, they made the Star Trek universe work, and the best Star Trek writers have, all the way back to people like Diane Duane and Peter David, but they all had permission. So they were all works that were completed with the approval of the rights holders. So it's not like Shatner came along and said, well, I'm going to write The Ashes of Eden. I've got this great Star Trek story, and I want to employ you, Judy and Gar, and we're just going to write it and let the chips fall where they may. No, these are all licensed works. and they were published. So I don't know what it's like to perhaps not have the rights to do a Star Trek movie, for instance. No, I'm just joking. But no, in order to do that, they have to get those rights, and they have to be approved. And the licensees, there's a licensing department at the studio that they look at what Star Trek properties are being brought to them, and will they grant a license that also has to be paid for. Well, the same pocketbooks at the time, Simon and Schuster had the rights to publish Star Trek novels, and people would bring them pitches and things, and the ones that were approved got written. But you do need the rights. Take it from me. Don't use someone else's IP to try and sell anything. I mean, if you want to be a fan, just make sure you don't crowdfund it, and make sure that you don't make any money from it. John R. writes in and says, "Hey, Rob, love this show. This is a change of pace from the topics you've been covering lately. I've been with Robservations since the beginning." Oh, thank you, John. And I don't think this subgenre of films has ever been brought up. The fake rock band movie. They will never make Avengers Endgame box office numbers, but they're fun, and they have good music in them, and I love them. Streets of Fire, Ellen Aim and the Attackers, Band Slam, Eddie and the Cruisers, and That Thing You Do with the Wonders are my favorites. Come on, no Spinal Tap? I mean, Liv Tyler and Charlize Theron in a Tom Hanks movie, how can you not love that? What about Josie and the Pussycats? Music and lyrics about a pop duo, not a band, but it is the best rom-com that fits the category. So, Rob, what do you think of fake rock band movies, and what are your favorites? Live long and prosper, John R. What a great letter. One of my favorite fake rock band movies is, ladies and gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains with Diane Lane. Love it, love it, love it. And of course, this is Spinal Tap. Eddie and the Cruisers is a fun one for me. That Thing You Do is great. Streets of Fire. I mean, Streets of Fire isn't really about a fake band, but there's a lot of fake bands in it. And I have to say, I mean, even though it's life imitating art, my favorite, it's not really Purple Rain, but that's more of a rock and roll biopic, even though it's not. But gosh, I mean, I'll tell you another movie that's awesome, but it's not. It's about a band, but it doesn't concentrate on their music. Green Room, Jeremy Saulnier's Green Room. That movie fucking rules, by the way. If you haven't seen Green Room, watch Green Room. And if you ever wanted to see Patrick Stewart playing against type, woo, watch Green Room. By the way, if you haven't discovered Jeremy Saulnier, watch Blue Ruin. That was his first. That was actually his second feature. Watch Blue Ruin and then Green Room. They make for a great double feature. But yeah, when you say the fake rock band movie, Spinal Tap's obviously the first thing that comes to mind. Hey, Coming to America, the recent saw the return of Sexual Chocolate, which is good. But ladies and gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains is definitely one of them. You should see. It's hard to find. You know, I have it on DVD, but I don't have it on Blu-ray. Kind of a cult movie. And of course, I mean, another, I guess you'd call it a fake rock band movie, but Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Another, I love Hedwig. Great film. My God, what a great movie that is. Again, based on a play, but what a cool thing to bring up, John. You know, I don't think anyone has ever brought up the fake rock band movie as a genre. I mean, it totally exists. Absolutely. This one comes from Justin Jorgensen. You know him, you love him. Is he here? Justin says, "Hey, Rob, and everybody within the Post-Geek singularity, I want you all to imagine something with me. Fulfill your role as an imagination connoisseur and come with me on an adventure. I adore the world of Transformers. The first live-action movie, G1 and the G1 movie, and I really like Star Trek as well, so imagine how giddy I got when I thought this up in my imagination-fueled noggin. The TNG crew of the Starship Enterprise has just departed a starbase because they've begun receiving strange transmissions in a language they've never seen or heard. They can receive coordinates, they punch them into their ship and warp there as fast as they can, with caution. They come into view of the strange signal that ultimately was not meant for them to receive whatsoever. The planet is made of an organic-looking metal with fires and destruction covering a large portion of the planet. Captain Picard watches as First Officer Riker and Counselor Troy beam down to the planet. There they can see that this planet is not meant for anyone their size. Whatever or whoever lives there are definitely much larger than any human. They look around until they're met by a friendly giant made up of metal and some organic matter inside. He walks loudly and heavily toward our heroes, towering over them. He reveals he is the leader of something called the Autobot Resistance. His name is Optimus Prime. "What do you see, number one?" Picard asks, extremely curious. "You're never going to believe this, Captain," Riker replies, shocked as all hell. Anyway, that was just a funny little something I wanted to share, Rob. I think a Transformers and Star Trek crossover in the right hands would be a frickin' treasure to behold. What do you think? Well, it's funny that you say that because it's been done. Yes, it has. It has been done. And let me just take you there. But in case you didn't know this, it's not the crew of the Next Generation, though, I have to say, just so you know. But since you brought it up, and I'm a Star Trek comic fan, allow me to show you this. And it is available on Amazon. It dropped on the collected graphic novel dropped on paperback on June 11th, 2019. And yes, so you can take solace in the fact that great minds do think alike. And look at this, kind souls. Yes, indeed. I mean, look, there you go. Star Trek versus Transformers. More than meets the eye. Transformers, robots in disguise. What if Frank Sinatra sang that? You got the power. I don't know if he would sing that, but there you go. It's there. So there it is, man. It was done. Not with the Next Gen crew, but certainly it has been out there. So there you go. You're not the only one with that idea. Let's see. This letter comes from William Everall, a once and future moderator, I think. William says, "Hey, Rob, I've noticed a lot of negativity from the Post-Geek Singularity lately. I will include myself in this because I had some negativity as well. Probably based on current conditions, but someone said they didn't watch Robservations very much anymore, and it made me realize our job as a community is to promote positivity, not talk about every political agenda or show we hate, as what does hate do? It spreads. So today, I'm going to talk about my love of comics, as well you should. I only put them second place to my wife." Really? That's kind of sweet. So the story goes, when I was just 3 years old in the 70s, my mom would read comics to me. At 4, my brother shared his Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Fantastic Four, and Hulk pocketbooks, retelling the old stories from Ditko and Kirby. He taught me to read because I just wanted more and more. The first comics I bought were a year later in a laundromat, while Mom just wanted us to do something. My brother bought Avengers, which was his favorite, and I bought John Byrne and Chris Claremont's X-Men with the Imperial Guard and Frank Miller's Daredevil during the middle of the Elektra saga, where she stabs Ben Urich and Urich. Is it Urich or Urich? Urich. It's Urich. Through a seat in the movie theater. Needless to say, I was hooked for life. I remember that, man. I grew up in one of the best eras of the comics, the 70s and 80s, but given any chance, I would read past comics too because I wanted to know the entire history of these characters. I wouldn't call myself a comic historian, but I've reread entire runs from start to current times of Avengers, X-Men, Amazing Spider-Man, Flash, Batman, Legion of Superheroes, tons, Teen Titans, Defenders, Hulk, Daredevil, and well, you get the point. What I would like to see is people not only watching the latest DC or MCU movies, but discover the joys of the past as well. Like in my eyes, Alan Moore's ABC comics, rather than being dark, just had generally good stories, as did his 1963 series, which was an homage to the Marvel comics of that time, and were very enjoyable. Astro City also does this. I bring these up as a gateway to greatness in the past, like Ditko, Kirby, Trimpe, Buscema, Steranko, Adams, etc. This is a time when stories weren't just shock value. So I ask you all, give these older comic titles a chance and learn the history behind the characters you love. There are many great stories to be found. William, I couldn't agree more. As you know, as you can probably see, this Robservatory, well, you can't really see it anymore, is below here. There are like omnibuses and all kinds of things that are here. I've got there's comics everywhere, and I love them all. So I am definitely here for that. And I agree. I think there's so many stories, there's so many cool things that are out there that you owe it to yourselves as imagination connoisseurs to pick up omnibuses that delve into your favorite characters. Why not? Why not do it? Do it now. Which I think is tremendously fun. Let's jump into where you guys are. Actually, I don't know where you're at because there's some craziness going on here, and I realize that I don't think I'm yet ready to switch shots to get to where I want to be, so I can get to see what you guys are doing. So as I'm talking to you, bear with me. Oh, look, I just did it. So let me find out. Where are we? Wow, a lot of you guys have fired in stuff to say. And wow, okay. This is going to be fun. I love you guys. I really do. So here we are. Let's see what you guys have to say. Those are from yesterday. Matt Guillemette sends in a super chat and says, which order do you watch the Fast and Furious movies, and why do you like Han? Thanks for the motivational talks you do on the show. God bless. Well, first of all, I love the Fast and the Furious movies because they're basically just genre movies that are what they are. I mean, yeah, of course, the first Point Break, the first Fast and Furious is kind of a ripoff of Point Break, but it's just fun. It's cars in L.A. It's multi-ethnic people. It's hot people, hot girls, hot dudes, hot cars, hot motorcycles, and to me, it's fun throwback B-movie stuff. But then as they moved along, I like the characters. To me, they're like an amusement park ride. But then you get to like the fifth one, and it's to me it's the epic. It's the best of the franchise. I mean, it combines crime thriller with an outlaw narrative. Still, again, fast cars, ridiculous action, and there's a familial bond that all the characters have that I think I kind of see it's very Star Trekian to me. But why is my favorite character Han? Well, I'll tell you. Han was introduced, actually, for those of you keeping score, the character of Han was not introduced in the Fast and Furious movies. When Justin Lin took over the franchise, directing the franchise with, let's say it with me now, you all know it, The Drift. Don't say Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. We all know it's The Drift. And while I never told her, when I got to meet Nikki Griffin, I mean, I told her later, who is one of the most delightful, Nikki Griffin, not only is she a beautiful woman who is, obviously a dream girl, she's a big nerd. And she and I became pretty good friends working on Femme Fatales together. I don't see much of her anymore. I wish I did. But we'd go to the comic book store. We'd have these long, protracted conversations. She'd listen to me pour my heart out. But Nikki Griffin is in the beginning of Tokyo Drift, or as she knows I call it, just The Drift. And by the way, if you haven't seen her dress up as Emma Frost, boy, did she do a good job of that. But I just want to say, I even know somebody that was in a Fast and Furious movie. I love him. But Han Solo, Soul meaning the city soul, when he was introduced in The Drift, I just love this outlaw character. I mean, look, man, maybe I'm growing my hair out. Maybe I'm just doing this luxurious locks thing because I'm inspired by Sun Kang's hair. Who's got better hair than? I mean, I'm old and it's gray, but who has better hair than Sun Kang? I don't know. But anyway, I just loved his character in Tokyo Drift. I mean, he had the whole town dialed, and he knew everybody. He had hot cars, and I don't know. I loved his character. I love the character of Han Solo. And he was introduced in Justin Lin's movie Better Off Tomorrow, and he brought the character and he brought his friend over to be in the Fast and the Furious franchise. How many characters come over from a different movie and are injected into a franchise that's already ongoing? I don't know if anyone has done it, but Justin Lin did. And I love that character. I love the way he lives. I loved his lifestyle. I wanted to be Han when I saw Tokyo Drift. And, it was very funny because loving Asian science fiction growing up, I mean, you can't be a fan of Asian cinema and not love, let's face it, hot Asian girls. And I actually saw Tokyo Drift with Bryan Singer. And he nudged me halfway through the movie, and he's like, "This movie really this movie really makes me want to be a straight dude." Because they go into when they start drifting in the parking garage, and there's all these girls in these short shorts, these Asian girls, dancing to music and fixing cars. I mean, it was like, who doesn't want to live that life? Anyway, that's one of the reasons I love the Tokyo Drift franchise. It's I'd call it a world beat, kind of like world music, world beat. You've got people of all walks of life, all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, all nationalities. It's a melange of human beings. They drive fast cars. They go on adventures. They fight crime. What's not to love? So there you go. I hope that explains it. But in terms of the order I watch them in, I would watch them in broadcast order. I won't get into the actual order of the franchise because it's insane. Just watch it in broadcast order and then try and figure it out a broadcast. Just watch it in release order. So just watch 1 through 8. I mean, you could watch it chronologically, but then it gets a little weird. Just watch it in broadcast or in release order. Matt goes on to say, which order do you watch the Fast and Furious? Oh, it's actually, that was a repeat question. I hope you didn't get charged. Oh, Sentient Dildo is here. Hi, Rob. I'm a huge fan and a huge Sentient Dildo. Believe me, I've been in some not so fun places. Laugh out loud. Anyway, I just want to say that you need a damn haircut, bruh. Love you, man, but you look better with shorter hair. Hope you have a great day. Well, I have to say it is a great day when a sentient dildo is talking about the fact I need a haircut. Look, man, I'm telling you, I'm going to get there. But I kind of like, of course I look better. I look better with shorter hair and more maintained hair. But, I'm working on it. I'm an old man. How many people my age can have these luxurious locks, this soft, silky, thick hair, silver fox hair? Come on, man. Maybe one day I'll get into the hen house again. Terry Pennington Jr. sends in a tip and says, at the end of the black hole, was the director giving us his version of heaven and hell? When Hans Reinhardt was inside of Maximilian standing there on the rocks with flames all around him, and was the black hole supposedly an entrance into heaven? Well, Terry, I think you nailed it. There's a lot of weird religious iconography at the end of the black hole, and it's a very heavy-handed allusion to, obviously, the heaven and hell. I don't think they were saying that. I think they really didn't know what to do. Like, what do you do when you go through a black hole? And what's interesting is we had Jerry Anderson doing a film called Into Infinity, a.k.a. The Day After Tomorrow. That was going to be, it's kind of a family. It was like it was a pilot that never got picked up, but it's about a family that goes through a black hole and they just go into another universe or a different part of the universe. And I think that's what ultimately is supposed to happen when you go through a black hole. But for some reason, there is a subgenre of movies. Let's call it, well, maybe only two, but the black hole and Event Horizon. When you go through some kind of spatial anomaly, that immediately it's a doorway to hell. Because, that makes sense, doesn't it? Why isn't it when you go through a black hole, I mean, if hell is a place, I guess it would be surrounded by the cosmos too. Like, why would a spaceship going through a black hole lead you to hell? Like the souls of all the damned, and just because Maximilian's red, he must be devilish. It was a little silly. But why not? Hey, the wonderful muffin ass. Does that mean that if you have a wonderful muffin ass, does that mean it's delicious and it's just right out of the oven? Anyway, the wonderful muffin ass sends in a tip and says, your thoughts on V'ger as a Star Trek villain? I've always been fascinated by the Voyager probes. I've oddly felt sad that we've abandoned them in space. They're not people, they're machines. It would be tragic if they became self-aware and felt dejected. Well, I too, wait a minute, man. We still talk to the Voyager probes, Voyager 1 and 2. As a matter of fact, on Twitter, they used to report, there were Twitter feeds for Voyager 1 and 2. And there was also talk that one of the Voyager probes at one point was taken over by a real extraterrestrial intelligence that proved to be false. Damn it. I think all great Star Trek... I don't like Star Trek villains. And I think that's really the problem with modern Star Trek, is they believe they have to have villains. I believe in Star Trek antagonists. And I think, if anything, V'ger is a tragic character. V'ger didn't ask to be born. I mean, they found V'ger is the product of us. V'ger is the realization of, it's an answer to the question that we posed. Are we alone? And the Machine Planet found Voyager 6, created V'ger to bring the information back to its creator as we asked it to. So I don't think V'ger's a villain at all. I think V'ger is a misunderstood antagonist. Or maybe V'ger himself is they misunderstood. Actually, they didn't. They did exactly what we wanted. They just didn't understand who we were. They didn't understand the people asking the questions. So I understand. I think, imagine if Voyager 1 and 2, actually, you know what? Let's find out where they are right now. There was never a Voyager 6, but let's find out, because it's a real thing. Where is Voyager 2 now? Mission status. Where's Voyager 2? I'm looking. These are all articles. I was hoping somebody would tell us the location of Voyager. Mission status Voyager. Oh, we can go right. Okay. Here it is. Here is the mission status of Voyager 1 and 2, which is ongoing. This is live right now. This is so cool. So I have to tell you something that is one of the most badass things ever. Bobak Fredowski had me and Roger Lay and Mike and Denise Akuda over. By the way, I put it in the live chat. You can now read where Voyager is. We went to JPL, and at the JPL in the mission control, they have a list and the mission status of how long a mission has been going. And Voyager 1 and 2 are ongoing. They're still ongoing missions. They haven't ended. So if you don't want to click on that link, Voyager 1 was launched Monday, September 5th, 1977 at 12:56. And Voyager 2 was launched August 20th, 1977 at 2:29. The mission elapsed time for Voyager 1 is 43 years, 6 months, 6 days, 11 hours, 9 minutes, and 19 seconds. Voyager 2 has been, the mission elapsed time is 43 years, 6 months, 19 days, 9 hours, 36 minutes, and 32 seconds. This is crazy. Okay. An AU is an astronomical unit. It's a measurement. And an AU is the distance from the Earth to the sun. Think about that. The distance from the Earth to the sun is 1 AU. So the distance from the Earth, from Voyager 1, is 152.13391,245 AUs. That's a long way. 1 AU is the distance from the Earth to the sun. Voyager 1 is 152.1 AUs from Earth. That's insane. Voyager 1 is currently traveling at 38,026.77 miles per hour. And Voyager 2 is currently traveling 34,390 miles per hour. That's fast. That's fast. One-way light time. So the speed of light that travels at 186,000 miles per second. We are in light time. Voyager 1 is 21 hours, 5 minutes, and 15 seconds away from Earth. So light traveling at 186,000 miles per second would take 21 hours and 5 minutes to reach Voyager at 186,000 miles per second. Think about that. That is a long way away. Wow, man. A long way away. Anyway. So there you go. So there you go, wonderful muffin ass. Thank you for asking that question. I love it. Jeff Yerke is here with his wife. Other than Claude and Candida, the official couple of the Burnettwork, I think Jeff Yerke and Mrs. Yerke need an official designation. They have to be also a first couple. Maybe we can have co-first couples. Mrs. Y and I continue along the dusty, sun-drenched trail of watching Westerns. From its men are men gospel to the that's women's work refrain, I believe that the Western is now a dead art form. In cancel 2021, it cannot exist. Live long and prosper, the Yerkman. Well, Mr. Yerke, I have to say, most of human history couldn't exist. And I don't necessarily think our current culture is the best thing for us. I think that what's going on now, we're going to find out, is ultimately very detrimental to both people and our culture. But far be it for me to make that claim. The free flow of ideas, the lack of people want to bleed out our biological imperatives out of us. It's a weird place we're in. But yeah, the Western genre is all problematic on many different levels. So let's get rid of that. But anyway. Matthew Smith sends in a tip and says, in the last episode, you asked what Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes is, and I wanted to tell you to avoid it. It's a mobile free-to-play game to a point. If you want to do well, you got to spend the money. While addicted to it, I dropped 2 G's easy. Stay away, Rob. I know what that's like. I played this Star Trek game. I still play it on my computer. Yeah, you have to drop. I mean, it's worse than gambling because you're not gambling and it makes you feel good about yourself. Terrible. Matthew Smith says, I know you don't like the Star Trek micro machines, Rob, but I have to brag to someone. No, I do. This week I was able to snag a rare Cardassian Keldon class micro machine for $10. I've never seen one that low in price. What is the rarest Starship toy you own? Well, hang on a second. Let me look and see if it's... I think it's in here as I'm looking. Gotta open this up. My drawers are so full of junk. Hang on, I'm looking to see. No, I can't find it. I have the Galoob diecast TNG Enterprise. That was one of the first Star Trek toys released. I know it's in here somewhere, but this is all my banking information. There's so much crap in here. It's at the bottom. I know. There was no stand. There's nowhere to put it. But just so you know. So, Matt, I want to thank you for writing it. Oh, by the way, you write it again. By the way, Rob, did you get a chance to check out Mel's Miniatures on Instagram yet? Here's the link to his Shapeways shop. He just put up one of my favorite EU ships, Akbar's MC-90 class Defiance from Dark Empire. Ooh, I know that ship. Ooh, since you put it in here, I'm going to put this into the live chat. This is, I have not checked out Mel's Miniatures, but here you go, live chat. Here's Mel's Miniatures, as given to us by Matthew Smith. But since you're asking, why not go there now myself? Because we have the newfangled internet right now. So I'll look on it. Let's see. Maybe I can put up Mel's Miniatures. Let's oogle it together, shall we? Hang on. I will I'll put it up on the screen. We'll look at it together. Hang on. I'm just doing this. Mel's Miniatures by Shapeways. All right, why don't we look at it together? Here we go, since you asked. Here's Mel's Miniatures. Ooh. Alien heads. Look at that. A Nebulon B frigate. Wow, this is pretty dope, man. If I do say so, I should say this for fully articulated, but man, look at this. These are awesome. Wow, the hyperdrive module for Jedi fighters. This is dope. They're not that expensive either. Oh, the Eclipse Super Star Destroyer. I won't lie, that gets me all hot and bothered. Look at these. These are amazing. As we go through this, look at everyone. How excited are you? I mean, I got to tell you, this gives me the Major Woodman. I'm telling you, parts of my body are standing up and saluting right now, if you know what I'm saying. Wow, look at that. These are great. Oh, I can't. Look at that. Nebulon B frigate. How big is that? $400? And there's 36 pages of this goodness? Oh, my God. Look at this. This just goes on. Well, it's in the live chat, everyone. You guys check it out yourselves. This is some dope stuff. So thank you for that. I very much appreciate that. That's amazing. So there you go. It's in the live chat. You can find it yourselves. You can look at it and gaze in wide wonder. Willow Yang is here. Hello, Willow. So where do you fall on the philosophical debate of the ship of Theseus? Something had all of its components replaced. Is it still the same object? Of course, this comes from the end of WandaVision. Is it still the same object? Well, okay, here's the thing. I mean, this is heady philosophical stuff, and I wasn't being contemplative of this today, but I would say, look, it's like when you buy a car and it has all original parts. And if some of those parts wear out, and of course you replace it with the same original parts. I mean, it's clearly not exactly the same, but in terms of what it was, it's still the same car. But my belief is when you talk about a ship or something, or car or whatever, it's supposed to be replaced. I mean, things wear out. If you have a mechanical machine, if you replace parts, is it the same ship? I would say that part of the life cycle of anything is to be replaced. All of the cells in our body have been replaced. All of them. Are we still us? I mean, it's an interesting philosophical question. I think the answer to it is yes, because part of the life cycle of something that man builds is to be constantly replaced. We are I think. I mean, you're getting me now. That would be my first inclination, is that even though the entire ship has been replaced, it's still the same ship. I mean, depending on how you want to look at it. Now, if you're going to modify it and change things, it obviously isn't. But like us, we're not the same people we were a year ago or I mean, what does that mean? Our consciousness, it's very, you know what, Willow, this is a question you and I should get hammered over and talk about. Terry Pennington Jr. says, it seems that the screenwriters today have just forgotten the basics. Who, what, where, when, and why. Or they do not know how to utilize them in the story setting. Or whoever makes the changes to the story without any given reason to the story. Well, I think, Terry, you bring up a good point. I think the real problem is that I think a lot of today's screenwriters have grown up watching movies and TV, and they haven't learned the literary underpinnings of writing. Remember, all writing, it seems silly, but if you're only ever following, I think all great storytelling has its roots in literature and understanding how literature works. I mean, that's where storytelling, after all, comes from. And I think that without that, if you've only ever watched TVs and movies and you're trying to write TV and movies, a lot of people are going to fall down on the job because they don't understand the basics. It'd be like trying to be a cinematographer without understanding how light itself works. I mean, even knowing something about the science behind light, how light reacts with color, or how the temperature of light works, the difference between, say, tungsten and other lights. And I think we get a lot of that, and that's problematic. And I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of screenwriters and people writing stories and movies and TV don't know the basics. Jason S. says, would you sell your soul to Satan if you could take over the Star Trek franchise? You know, I would not sell my soul to Satan. If that was a possibility in real life, if Satan came and said, you can do this in the real world, would you sell your soul? No, because the time we spend on this planet is fleeting, and no, if I do have an eternal soul, I do not want to spend my eternal soul damned for all eternity in hell. That would be, one of my favorite, talk about depictions of hell. There's a Twilight Zone episode. God damn it, I forget the name of the episode. Hang on. Let me consult our newfangled invention, the internet, and find out where this is. Twilight Zone. Criminal in Hell. Let's see what they say. A Nice Place to Visit. That's the name of the episode. A Nice Place to Visit. This criminal, he dies and suddenly he gets everything he wants. And he thinks he's in the afterlife. He thinks he's in heaven. He's died, he's gone to heaven, and he gets all the girls he wants. He wins at gambling. He gets everything he possibly wants. And after a few weeks of it, he's bored. He's bored because he has everything he wants. And he finally asks, I guess, his guardian angel. He says, listen, man, I know this is fine, but basically, I want to go to the other place. Basically, he's saying, I'd rather go to hell because he's a criminal and he can't stand. And he finds out this is the other place. So eternal damnation, you get everything you want, you win all games of chance. I mean, that to me is a far more interesting hell than being banned to eternal damnation. But yeah, no, I would not sell my soul. If I took over taking over the Star Trek franchise is not enough. What I would want is carte blanche to do with the Star Trek franchise like Rick Berman had. I would whatever I would create, I want to be able to put online. I'd want to be able to put out there, and so yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. Science and Reason Lover sends in a tip. It says, "Hi Rob, this might be my favorite tip I've ever received ever." Science and Reason Lover sends in a tip and says, "Hi, Rob. This is my first tip. I just got 3/4 of the way through Legends of the Galactic Heroes. I can't believe what just happened. I cannot believe it. I am stunned. You probably know what I am talking about." Science and Reason Lover, of course I do. For those of you who don't know, there is a Japanese anime series called Legends of the Galactic Heroes. It is based on a 10-volume Japanese science fiction series of books. It is bar none. Not only is it my favorite anime of all time, it's one of my favorite science fiction shows of all time. Now, they've been remaking it. I'm talking about the original OVA series, the original video animation series, that ran from 1988 onward. There's 110 episodes of the original, and you can find it. And if you like anime, and what's so cool about it, first of all, it's very complex. It has a widely sprawling cast of characters, and it's basically the story of two warring galactic empires. One's based on France, and one is based on 18th century Prussia. And so there's no aliens, but there are two warring galactic empires, and then there's a neutral planet, Fazan, that kind of is playing both sides against the middle. And it is epic. It's like World War II meets Lord of the Rings in space. And at the heart of the story are two young men, two military geniuses, Reinhard von Lohengrin and Yang Wen Li, and they're on either side. And it's how they come into conflict. It is one of the most epic, involving, exhaustive. I mean, it is amazing. The show's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, if you don't like Japanese anime, it's not like a regular anime series. It's like a real. It just happens to be animated. It's one of the most amazing science fiction shows you'll ever see, and it is so engrossing. But as Science and Reason points out, it has one of the most jaw-dropping and flat-out, it will leave you in a state of disbelief. You're watching the show, and anybody who's predisposed to liking this kind of thing, I am telling you, this is one of the most engrossing things you will ever watch in your entire life. And you will, as Science and Reason says, let me read it again. I just got 3/4 of the way through Legends of the Galactic Heroes. I can't believe what just happened. I cannot believe it. I am stunned. You probably know what I'm talking about. I felt the same way. I discovered this series. There used to be like an anime shop that was on Sepulveda. This had to have been late 90s, and I was looking for some anime to watch, and I was given a Legends of the Galactic Heroes movie. And what was interesting is that it's all scored to classical music. I mean, there's original music too, but there's a lot of classical pieces. And there's this movie. I didn't know there was a series. There's 3 movies in a series, but the series is better. And I got the series. You couldn't even get it legally. I bought there's a prequel series. Don't bother with that. But there's the original 110 episode series. And it's 4 seasons, and I bought the bootleg Hong Kong DVDs, which had terrible English subs, but I could get what was going on. Now, I'll admit, it was released by Sentai Filmworks on Blu-ray here in America for the first time, only once, and it was $800. It is the most expensive piece of physical media that I own, but it's my favorite thing. And when you get to this point, I mean, it's jaw-dropping. If you get into this, if you love science fiction, you love really great, epic, sprawling, involved science fiction. It's one of the greatest science fiction shows ever made. Maybe the greatest. But if you like things like Babylon 5 and stuff and The Expanse, you will love Legends of the Galactic Heroes. It's just animated. If someone said, Rob, if I could make any live action thing, I would do a live action version of Legends of the Galactic Heroes, along with Greg Bear's book Anvil of Stars, which also I would love to do. But if I could do, and you could do it now, you could actually make a Legends of the Galactic Heroes series. You'd probably have to change the title. It's my favorite thing. So Science and Reason lover, you know what? Your first tip, I can't tell you how delighted I am that you sent me this tip, because I don't know anyone, not one person that I know has ever also watched the show. I am the only one of all the people that I know. I mean, I'm talking about people that I actually know. You're the first to come back and say, yes. So you know. And I felt the same way. As a matter of fact, when it happened, I walked around. I couldn't stop thinking about it for maybe a week. I was like, what the? I mean, it was that much. It was that much. And by the way, don't go Google what it is. Watch the show. Do yourself a favor. Just go. Rob Burnett said to go watch Legends of the Galactic Heroes. Just do it. Do it. If you like science fiction, you like Babylon 5, you like The Expanse, just go do it. Don't. Or as Krug's, or as Chang said, don't wait for the translation. Answer me now. Just go do it. Just go watch it. Because if you ruin it, Stubble McShave, you would love it. Stubble McShave says, happy 50th anniversary to THX 1138. Lucas has affected the last half century when it comes to movie making. In what way do you think he's affected the movie industry the most? Is it the impact of Star Wars, Skywalker sound, editing technology, or something else? Stubble McShave is correct. Today is the 50th anniversary of the release of THX 1138, Lucas's extension of a student film, THX 1138 4EB. I seem to remember. I love THX 1138. It's a great dystopian science fiction movie. But what Stubble is asking, what is Lucas's great contribution to filmmaking? Well, what I think more than anything, what George Lucas did was he made people imagine more when it came to the possibilities of what film, especially what kind of stories and how you could tell stories on film. People were no longer they were before people were, you could only do a certain amount of things on film with the kind of effects technology that existed. You had matte paintings and whatever. So what you could dream up that you could later bring to cinema was limited. And I think George Lucas's greatest contribution through a number of different things, through all of these technologies, editorial effects, sound, is George Lucas unmoored filmmakers' imaginations. They were no longer stuck to some slip on some shoreline somewhere. No, you could go anywhere. And I think that's what George Lucas's greatest legacy will be, is he taught filmmakers and people that were creating visual media like this that your imagination can be now, it's limitless what you can do. And ILM, I mean, I did get today in the mail, I forgot to bring it with me, I should have shown it on the show. I did get the last issue of Cinefex today, which has the Mandalorian on the cover. And, you know, you want to know his 40 years of Cinefex magazine, 178 issues, show his legacy. But that's what I think his greatest legacy is he told filmmakers all around the world that they could dream up anything and make it happen on camera or on screen. 200 Watt Studios sends in a super chat and says, how insane would it be to get all the new contracts, deals, etc. in order for a Justice League 2 to be made? It seems impossible, let alone getting the financing. Dude, I agree. And I was trying to explain this. A lot of people don't understand how insane it would be. It'd be really crazy to be able to do it. And again, you know, no longer with this whole movement, everyone's going to be like everyone else. It ain't show friends, it's show business. It's great, Zach, that you got all this happening. And if we're going to make Justice League 2, if you want the parade in my town, you have to pay. Carmine, I don't think it's right that you extort money from the college. Look, you're using my police, my sanitation people, my Frios mobiles. So, if you mention extortion again, I'll have your legs broken. Well, I'm sure we can arrange for a nice little honorarium from the student fund. That was a little preview of the 4K version of Animal House that's coming to hopefully a physical media collector near you. But yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine what the contracts would be. I can't even imagine. Connor Yardumian is here. Honestly, I kind of think they shouldn't tie it so heavily to Snyder's films because it'll limit what Snyder could do if parts 2 and 3 are greenlit. I just don't think that they ever will be greenlit. I think it's too much. It would cost too much, but we'll see. I don't know. The Iberian Troll sends in a super chat and says, what if HBO Max uses the stagecraft technology to bring down costs of a Snyder Cut sequel? Could that make the sequel a realistic possibility? Well, that's a good... I don't think you're a troll, Iberian, but the Iberian Troll asks a very good question. They could be. You could bring the production costs down so there's less green screen compositing in post, but ultimately it's still very expensive to use that technology. And you still have to pay all those people. I mean, it's the rates. It's everyone's rates, exorbitantly high. So it's tough. I don't know why these are being duplicated. Checkmate 9 Moves sends in a tip and says, "What is your opinion on film classification in regards to genre or style, drama, comedy, and horror, all genres? But what about sci-fi and thriller? Is fantasy considered a genre, style, or type? How would you differentiate? What are your thoughts?" Well, look, I think genres are a great shorthand and an easy way to classify types of movies. We all know what a rom-com is. We all know what a horror movie is. But I think science fiction and fantasy, the definition of science fiction and fantasy are... Science fiction is a genre of story about something that might one day or someday happen, or could happen, or may happen, whereas fantasy is a genre of storytelling set in a milieu or full of things that can never happen. And I think that's the difference between the two of them. And that's why, like, for instance, Dune is different than The Lord of the Rings, because in Dune, do they have the spice melange, and are human beings being mutated to turn into guild navigators and sandworms? Yeah, they are. Could that happen? Probably not, but it's plausible, I guess, if you were on Arrakis and were eating spice and that kind of thing could happen, maybe metaphorically, it could possibly happen that human beings, there could be a spice in the universe that would extend our lives and mutate us, whereas there's never going to be a Balrog. The Astari do not exist. So Saruman and Gandalf, the Astari are not beings that are ever going to show up. I mean, I guess you could say that maybe, but I mean, Sauron, the Ring of Power, all that stuff, like, we get it as a storytelling trope, but that's completely not real. It's never going to be real. I mean, maybe you could say, well, there might be a digital version of the Ring of Power, but, it's not. So that's why I think that's the difference. So fantasy is considered all those things. It's a genre, a style, and a type. So I think that's kind of the difference of the two of them. Good question, though. Andrew Christie sends in a tip and says, "Hey, Rob, Netflix are dishing out hundreds of millions for their movies now, and Amazon has their $1 billion Lord of the Rings series. How can HBO not make it financially viable to make Justice League sequels? Genuinely curious. What about WandaVision's $250 million budget?" Well, here's the thing. WandaVision's $250 million budget was justified by 23 Marvel movies that came before that all average. The average gross of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was $1 billion each. And Disney Plus, they need to be driving subscribers there, and a $250 million budget is great. It's awesome, but it's justified. It's because it's Marvel. And even the amount of subscribers, Disney Plus went up like more than 5 million subscribers since WandaVision started. 5 million subscribers every, whatever that means in terms of of their monthly, whatever the monthly fee is. I mean, that's pretty damn healthy. 5 million times, what is it, $6 or something? So what is that? I mean, that's a lot of money. So the problem with Zack Snyder's Justice League is, like it was pointed out just earlier, the amount of money it would cost. I mean, sure, for Marvel, they can justify that money because they know that they have that kind of cash flow coming in. But if Zack Snyder's Justice League drives 10 million or 20 million subscribers to HBO Max, well, then maybe there's a conversation to be had. But it gets to the point where if you're just going to be on a streaming service, the only way, as I said, the only way that Zack Snyder's Justice League can have a sequel is one, if Zack Snyder wants to come back and do it. Somebody else could do it, but if he comes back, it's going to be a theatrical release, and the theatrical release will be looking to make $1 billion, because to get all those actors back, oh my God, I can't even imagine how much that would cost. So, Sister Harrow sends in a super chat. Thank you, Sister Harrow. I very much appreciate that. Comics and Nostalgia says, oh my God, you're going to burn out your brain watching all of those Snyder DC movies. No, I won't. It's going to be great. I'm going to love it. Checkmate 9 Moves sends in a tip and says, do you think there's a difference between a comic book movie and based on a comic book? I don't consider Dark Knight and Road to Perdition as comic book movies, but rather crime dramas based on a comic. X-Men is a comic book movie. Thoughts on the difference? Ooh, I think you're right. I mean, because based on a comic book, Ghost World is a comic book movie. American Splendor is a comic book movie. A movie based on a comic book. But I would say that, graphic storytelling, I think the difference is, look, I still think that The Dark Knight's still a superhero movie. Road to Perdition or History of Violence, Road to Perdition is based on a graphic novel. It just happens to be illustrated. Whereas The Dark Knight, even though, it's more like a Michael Mann crime film, it's still a Batman movie with the Batman and the Joker, even though it's done in a very realistic way. Just like Ghost World, I would say if you've got a superhero in it, the treatment of the superhero is still, while it's adult, it's still a superhero. Whereas I wouldn't say that Ghost World is even though it's completely based on a comic book, it's not a comic book movie. It's a movie based on a graphic novel. So I think that's kind of the difference. Sean's World sends in a super chat. It says, keep what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing, Rob. Shout out Omar, Gil, Lewis, Haynock, Joss, Justin, etc. God bless people. I love that, Sean's World. God bless people, you're right. Alexander Wilson's here. Alexander says, Ryan Coogler was on Gemma Lee Hill's show, and he said that charting the path of Black Panther 2 with Boseman's death has been the most difficult thing he's done in his life. Man, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. You know why? Because our man is a tough act to follow. Let me just say, look at this man. How do you follow this up? Like, how do you honor him? How do you honor him? I don't know. Man, I really love this character. It was so cool when he was introduced in Civil War. I don't know what you do, especially because you're friends with somebody and they're gone. Also, the film is causing his personal and professional life to blend together. Thoughts? Wow, that's really well. I think probably the themes that he's dealing with. God, can you imagine? You're making Black Panther, and then you're dealing with what happened over the summer with Black Lives Matter, and now you're dealing with the trial of the man that killed George Floyd, that straight up murdered George Floyd, is happening now. So, you're trying to reconcile this character of Black Panther, your own blackness, how you grew up, how you felt. Think about it. His first movie was Fruitville Station. And all of these things swirling around that touched him personally, professionally, having been, you don't direct an actor without becoming friends with them. For the most part. Sometimes people aren't, but I can't even imagine. I don't even, the amount of personal commitment and personal involvement that Ryan Coogler has trying to craft a Black Panther story that not just honors Chadwick Boseman, but has to honor the entirety of Black culture and Black people around I can't even imagine, because of the responsibility, especially the time that we're in. My God, I don't even know. That is a task that I do not envy him, because I do not know. I can't even imagine. I'll tell you what, though. I'll bet he's going to make a fucking great movie out of it because of all this. A 200-watt studio says that Kino Lorber's March Madness sale is on now. It is. Kino Lorber, by the way, if you're a fan of Ridley Scott's Hannibal, Kino Lorber has Hannibal on 4K for like $13, and the transfer is nice if you love that movie. So that Kino Lorber is a label, Kino Lorber, and they have a sale going on. They always have great sales. They've got a lot of classics and weird. You can get Ken Wall and James Glickenhaus's The Soldier with a great James Glickenhaus commentary right there at that sale. Alexander Wilson says, 1991's The Commitments was a great fake music band movie. I can't believe I didn't even think about that. And you know what another one is? One of my favorites? Sing Street. Sing Street is a great fake band movie. And The Commitments. As a matter of fact, watch those two as a double bill. Yo. Go to Ireland, form a band. Alexander Wilson, thank you for that. Sheriff Carl says, okay, Cobra Kai Season 4 prediction. Danny and Johnny team up against Kreese. Kreese is defeated. Kreese knows he has to bring in the big guys. Satan himself. Satan sends him his number one badass. He comes in to Miyagi Dojo, guitar ablaze. It's Cobra Vi. Wow, you're really crossing the streams, man. Crossing the streams. I like it. I'd watch it. By the way, I love Crossroads. It's great. Just Plain Steve sends in a super chat and says that someone online today mentioned a movie called Escape from Tomorrow, supposedly filmed largely at Disneyland without their knowledge. Just wondering if you've ever heard of it. I have seen it, and it is true. That's exactly what it is. They filmed this movie at Disneyland, and no one knew. What is that? The word surreptitiously, I think? Yes, and it is. It is. And you should watch it. It's not great, but it's certainly interesting, especially if you're a Disney fan. Louis Tully is here. Am I the only one who thinks T2 is an overrated sequel? I don't think it holds a candle to the far superior original. Louis Tully, that is not a hot take. You and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay because I wholeheartedly agree with you. Totally. Mushroom Hunter is here. Mushroom Hunter says, hey, Rob, any insights about Brian Fuller's interest in greener mycologist Paul Stamets? Discovery his namesake, and Hannibal has serial killer Stamets that uses his victims to grow mushrooms. As a mushroom hunter, any idea why the love for Paul? Well, I think anybody that looks into fungi, anyone who looks into mushrooms, because I did after that Hannibal episode, it's fucking fascinating. Fascinating. I mean, you want to blow your mind, and I think that's why. I think there is something inherently kind of horrific about the power of a fungus like mushrooms. You start reading what they're capable of, pretty interesting stuff. Very much something that would inspire, both body horror and science fiction. So horror and sci-fi. So yeah. There you go. 200 Watt Studio says, holy cow, you're right. Nikki Griffin is hot. I just needed to super chat that. I wonder if I have her phone number in my phone. I wonder if I call her up and I wonder if she'd take my call. I don't know if I have her phone number. Let's see. I might not. Because this is a new phone. Because I haven't talked to her. Ooh, I do have her phone number. I'm going to call her. Let's see if she'll pick up. See if she says hello. If she even has my number in her phone.
Hello?
Nikki Griffin.
Yes.
Robert Burnett. Calling.
Oh, hello, you.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Well, so I'm live doing my daily YouTube show. And
you are.
yes, and it came up, this Fast and the Furious franchise came up. And, of course, you know of my undying love of the drift.
Yes, I do.
Well, I can't.
I'm much appreciative.
I could not discuss the drift without talking about what a lovely person you are and how we met
I love that.
working on Femme Fatales. And I was telling everybody live that not only do you play a great white queen when you cosplay at San Diego Comic-Con, but you are genuinely a lovely and delightful person. And I might have spilled that you're a big geek, too. Comic book reader.
Oh, wow.
And I figured,
led with that.
since I do call up people on the show occasionally, and I figured I'd call you up because we haven't talked in a while. How are you doing, by the way?
Pretty great, just working, surviving the pandemic, and that's about it.
How's your animal? Do you have animals?
I have a cat, Sophia. And she is lounging in her window hammock right now.
Well, that's good. Now, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Did you watch WandaVision?
Of course.
And what is your take?
What kind of question is that?
I know. I shouldn't have even asked. And what did you think?
I loved it.
Yeah?
I absolutely loved it. I loved the beginning where they showed all the different childhood sitcoms and that I loved watching when I stayed home sick, or watching Nick at Night, or watching sitcoms with my dad, as I got older. I thought it was brilliant that they could, put those two genres together in a way that really worked.
I thought so too. By the way, how is your dad? I miss hearing about, the political differences you two have.
Oh, yes. He's good. My parents they're good. They have their vaccines. They're retired, living in Palm Springs.
Yeah, they're still there? That's good.
Yep.
Do you see them often?
No, I haven't this past year. I've seen them probably 4 or 5 times, with quarantining and, just trying to keep them safe. My dad's older. My dad's over 80, so, I wanted to be real careful, and I'm still working, so I had to occasionally go into the office, so it
Right.
wasn't, I wanted to be safe. But now that they're vaccinated, hopefully soon I will be able to tear myself away from. I'm a talent manager now. I'm no longer acting.
I knew that. I knew you were telling me.
Yes.
But are you still going to Sugarfish?
Oh my God, I get Sugarfish. That's like my treat. That's my one true joy during this pandemic is getting Sugarfish.
I know. I mean, I miss our lunches. That was the best part. Going to the comic book store and going to Sugarfish. That was a day.
I know.
Well, listen.
Soon.
We should do that. We should, if they open up. Can you go in there? Can you eat there now? They're supposed to open up LA finally.
Yeah, I am not going anywhere until I am vaccinated.
Right.
I just want to make sure that I am, keeping my coworkers safe and stuff like that. But, yeah, I'm all for it. I would love to catch up with you. I would love to see your face. It's been
Too long.
way longer than a year.
Yeah, because sure. I think last time we saw each other was at Comic-Con 2 years ago.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Well, listen, I will let you go. I just want to call you. I thought people love it when I say hello to everybody. Say hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Well, there you go. Oh, by the way, let me ask you: are you reading any comics now, like new comics?
You know what? I like to have a whole completed series.
I know. Me too.
I like the omnibuses.
No.
You know that we used to go shopping together.
Yes.
So I haven't read anything really new. I was working my way through Lock and Key and the Umbrella Academy. Those were the last 2 things that I was reading during quarantine.
Both good series too.
Yeah, I haven't finished, but I love both shows. So I
good.
wanted to see. Obviously, those were shows that I had watched before I read the comics. Whereas Marvel stuff in general, even if I haven't read those specific comics, I know a lot about the world and the lore and, the connections. So it's always fun to watch something like WandaVision when you know so much about the whole MCU and everything and how it ties together. But with the Umbrella Academy and Lock and Key, I didn't know anything. So it was a completely different experience.
Well, that's phenomenal. Now, let me ask you this before I let you go, because we're finally going to see Fast and the Furious 9, and Sun Kang's character. I know you didn't work with him in the film because your character didn't make it to Japan, but do you have any feelings about #Justice for Han? Will Sun
I
Kang.
mean, I can't wait to see how, it's such a crazy thing. Like, each movie gets crazier and crazier, and I'm so excited to see how, they like bring back characters that the fans have been, wanting to see for so long, and getting that justice, and I'm super excited about it.
I just, the fact that he died in Fast and Furious 3, he comes back in 4, 5, and 6.
I know, it's so crazy.
I mean, it's the greatest thing ever, and the fact that I was one of the earliest bandwagon people to bring him back, and he's coming back. For me, it's like my version of the Snyder Cut is getting back Han. So.
And it's just canon. It doesn't even have to be a separate cut. It's just happening.
It's happening. Are you excited to see Zack Snyder's Justice League?
I'm not. Look, you know me. I've always been a Marvel girl. There have been great comics that I've loved in the DC world. I think that they have not done so well with their films. So I will for sure watch it to see if I enjoyed it better than I liked the original. But I'm not super hopeful. Let's say that.
Right.
Let's say that. I mean, I was really disappointed with the second Wonder Woman film.
Me too.
Because I felt like they had really kind of nailed it with the first one, and they were gonna, get on the right track with their film franchise. But what can you do?
I know. Well, listen, I want to thank you for picking up the phone. I told people I'm going to call Nikki Griffin. I think I have her number in my phone because I have a new number, and I'm like, I wonder.
Now that I'm in a different business, I can't just ignore phone calls that I don't recognize numbers from.
Oh, that's amazing! I'm just going to randomly call you. You know what? I'll just call you randomly to be on the show.
Awesome.
Well, listen, it was great to talk to you. Now I've got to get back to this live show that I'm still broadcasting.
All right. Well, enjoy.
It was great to talk to you. I miss you.
You too. I miss you too.
We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Well, there you go, 200-watt studio. There was Nikki Griffin, who, of course, she's in the beginning scenes in America, Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift. Come on, man. What other YouTuber just randomly calls people? There you go. Am I a YouTuber, though? I don't know. The Richard sends in a super chat and says, Aloha, Rob. If I'm not mistaken, Michael Keaton reprised his detective role from Out of Sight with Clooney and Lopez and Jackie Brown. That is correct. The Richard is correct. They're both Elmore Leonard novels. Or are they, right? Is it Elmore Leonard? That's why he was able to do that. That is correct. So, but he's playing the same character where I guess that would fit. You're right. That's a good call. Good call, Richard. That's why you are who you are. That's why you work for this channel. Matt Guillemet sends in a super chat and says, do you consider Justin Lin's Better Luck Tomorrow in the Fast and Furious timeline? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I absolutely do. For sure. 100%. Sheriff Carl sends in a tip and says, dude, you got great fucking hair. You remind me of Michael Lonsdale. My hair migrated to the rest of my body. Not me. This is about it right here. On the topic of superhero chest sigils, I once did shave my chest hair into the shape of the Batman symbol. And the thing is, when you took your shirt off, did the ladies go crazy? Eric Grant sends in a tip and says, hey, Rob, with all the WandaVision chatter, I'm frankly a bit shocked that no one has brought up the elephant in the room. What's up with Agnes and Ralph? She claims Ralph sprays it on me every night, but there's no taming this tiger. Did they or didn't they? You know what? That's a really good question. I think that we don't really know. I mean, Ralph Boner spraying it all over her. He's Ralph Boner. I mean, I don't know. Boehner, it's a good question. A question that I don't know if we're going to get. Canadian Kevin Smith fan. This is one of the ongoing jokes on this channel I quite enjoy. Canadian Kevin Smith fan says, hey there, Kevin. Love WandaVision, and also I'm looking forward to the Snyder Cut also. Kleenex is ready for the tears. When can we expect Clerks 3 again? Hashtag Moose Jaws soon. You know what? Apparently, I'm being mistaken for Kevin Smith, and I will say I used to write for his website Movie Poop Shoot for a while, and all I can say is that I don't know when you're going to get Clerks 3, but if you want me to be Kevin Smith, I would love to make as many movies as he has. That's all I can say. I haven't been able to. Nick Parrish says, "What's up, Rob? So I have to ask, since you have lamented about how long it's been since you've been in a theater, do you think that you may shed some tears of joy when you return because it's been so long and what it represents as far as virus progress?" You know what? I've been sequestering away. I've done all my due diligence, and I've been safe from the whole pandemic. But I want to go back to a movie theater because I chart the course of my life. I mean, if you ask me, like, how old was I when I saw certain movies? Movies have been the way I don't have kids. It's the way I've chart the passage of time in my life is through movies. And I really feel psychologically that I've skipped a year. I feel like I've had a year ripped from me. I'm like Logan, my life clock. Somebody took a year away. And I'll tell you, man, if they open theaters and the first movie I get to go see again when I get back is Godzilla versus King Kong, I'll feel good. If I can go to the Dome and get my seats, have a little glass of vino and some Diet Coke and some popcorn, and I can just kaiju out, all is forgiven. All is forgiven. These things are repeating. Matt Guillemette sends in another super chat and says, "Wait, this is the same thing. Why are they're things doubling up? I hope these things they're not charging you twice. Otherwise, I'll send all this money back to you." All of these things are like, this is so weird. Lewis Tully, wow, crazy. These are all like, these it's just backing up. I see. Tom Jr. Jackson says, "Deadline just announced the Los Angeles theater chains that will open once COVID restrictions are lifted. Just keeping you in the loop, brother." Well, thank you, Tom. I got to find out what that is. Let me see if my favorite theater chain, the ArcLight, if I go and use my app, which I haven't used in a frickin' year, no cinemas found. No cinemas found. The poor ArcLight is still not opening. Damn it. Janet. Mr. Tickletrunk says, have you ever thought about starting your own cult? I think you have the gift of persuasion and charm. Great hours, and you get to make reality whenever you want. Lots of people do exactly what you want, like make movies for you. Think about it. Yeah, I wouldn't want to start. You know what? I could never start a cult because I wouldn't want to take people away from their loved ones, and I would just want to make movies. So if cult means starting a production company where I could get it funded, and all the people in the company would make movies, that would be it. I don't think I'd be a very good cult leader. And yeah, I wouldn't be like. See, the thing is, I don't need the adulation. What I would need as a cult leader would I'd get too wrapped up in all the stuff. Like I don't need to control people. I'd rather learn from people. So I would like to start a cult where if I started a cult, I wouldn't be the focus of the cult. I would make the focus people making cool shit, you know, and maybe their entrance into the cult they'd have to find me interesting third party action figures I didn't have or something. No, I would be a bad cult leader, and I'd be like, you don't need to give me money, just come over, let's hang out. I'd be a bad cult leader. Mr. Tickletrunk goes on to say, says, "So busy lately, I've been sad. I can't bitch and complain and chat with all of you while I listen. I pass my love to the chat and keep the cult leader thing in mind. I think you'd knock that one out of the park with your top-level storytelling skills." Well, it's very nice that you think that way, Mr. Tickletrunk. You know, maybe I could like buy some land and be like the Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh and go to, who would you all come? The Post-Geek Singularity. I guess we've got enough catchphrases. I just have to come up with an agenda. And, you know, while I have to say, being like Keith Raniere, who just has a harem of women, is not unappealing. But, you know, the whole branding thing and yeah, it's not good. It's just not me. Not me. I wouldn't be a good cult leader. Evan Newman sends in a tip and says, when we watch Justice League next week, could we be witnessing the beginning of the end of the mega-budget film? If theaters never recover to 2019 levels, is streaming alone enough to justify spending $300 million on one film? And will mid-budgets return instead? Well, Evan, it's a very good question. No. Without theaters that are open at full capacity, we can expect to not make $1 billion a movie. You can't, so you could never justify the expense. They're going to use the stagecraft technology that they were using on The Mandalorian. I think we're going to see the mid-budget film come again because, look, again, it ultimately doesn't matter how much money is spent on a movie. You still need great characters and great storytelling. You do. You lie, Robert. Throg. You lie. In SETI Alpha 5, there was life, a fair chance. This is SETI Alpha 5. Dude, Gandalf, a Balrog, and Saruman. I ran into it just the other day. Fuck you, Rob. Well, Throg, if you believe you ran into them just the other day, then hey, who am I to spell that for you? Alexander Wilson is back and says, I was listening to Kara Swisher, who just interviewed Spike Lee for the New York Times, and Scott Galloway's podcast, and they said that movie theaters have gone, wait for it, Sears. I almost crashed my car when they said it. Are they correct? That's a tough one. I think you mean like out of business forever. Look, I don't know. You know, if people have realized, I mean, the one thing the pandemic could do is movies were still special. And now if you can get your content and people, you know, they've realized they can live without movie theaters, man, I hope not. I do worry that. I worry about that, though. What is the incentive when you can stay? I think what's really interesting about the pandemic is the whole relationship that people have with their homes, I think, has changed. And the fact that, like, I have talked to people in the pandemic, like Nikki Griffin. I haven't talked to Nikki Griffin other than online typing in 2 years. And I love Nikki Griffin, and I used to go out to lunch all the time. Truth be told, I had a massive crush on her, but I never, we would listen to each other's romantic travails, but I never, you know, pursued anything there. But I love her. She's great. But I talk to people more on Zoom, and people, I reach out to them, how you doing? And I think the world has changed a little bit. So the movie theater, we have to see if people are going to go back. We have to see. People need to reignite their love with the cinema. Star Trekker 58 sends in a super chat and says, hey, Rob, are you saying there's no magic? Damn, I guess Disney proves it, and it took me 62 years to work it out. Either that or the magic just went away. No, Star Trekker, you know what? We can feel the magic. We can still feel the magic. The magic's in here. And you know it. You still feel the magic. You're a Star Trekker 58, man. You still feel the magic, but the magic's in here. The magic is not out there. So... Nick Paris says, Rob, breaking news. Deadline has just reported LA will fall in line with the state guidelines and allow theaters to open between Monday and Wednesday of next week. The light at the end of the tunnel is now in reach. Give it to me. But until the ArcLight app, now I'm going to look at it all the time. Until the ArcLight app comes back, we're not going to do it. A 200-watt studio says Head was a great fake band movie. Yes, that's old school. Yes, Head was a great fake band movie. I forgot about that. Well, then, no, I guess you couldn't say Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is well, it is. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is a great fake band movie too. Yes. Mr. Tickletrunk asks if I checked out Chipongal. I have not yet. I know it's cool. I have to do that. I don't know why everyone's doubling up on these things. 200-watt studio says, thanks, Rob. Please send her my best. She's awesome. Well, you heard me. Send her my best. Sheriff Carl says, my tits looked bigger. I was a big hit on Capitol Hill. The regrowth was horrible. I say, keep your hair going, dude. Your hair's metal and regal as fuck. Yeah, man. Dude, I'm going to keep the metal. Keep the metal. Yeah. Wow. In the still of the night, I hear the urk crawling or scratching right near my front door. That's the riff. Anyway, Paul J. Lewis sends in a super chat and says, Deadline News, page 5, 55 years of Star Trek. The History Channel sets an 8-part docuseries from Nacelle Company, helmed by CEO Brian Volk-Weiss. Thoughts, Rob? I like Brian Volk-Weiss. Mark Altman's going to be involved in it. I think it's cool. They're going to do a history of Star Trek, the whole history of Star Trek as a History Channel series. Mark Altman's one of the executive producers. Obviously, I know Mark. And maybe he'll have me on it. But I bet they won't. I bet. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Will the Inglorious Trexperts be on it? I don't know. Will they even allow me near that? Perhaps. Maybe not. Maybe they'll do a bit on Free Enterprise and I'll be interviewed. I don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, all of you across these 28 known galaxies, it's time to bring this long, epic chat to a conclusion. Because, for the members at a certain level, we're going to go right over to a live chat. So if you're a member of this channel at a certain level, we're going over to this member chat, which I'm late to anyway, but I don't think that anybody who wanted to be in that chat is sitting there waiting going, where's Rob? But anyway, I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel generously through tips and super chats, but also writing letters. And the website was down for whatever reason. It's back up. You can go to the Burnettwork.net and send me letters. I still have a lot of letters I have yet to get to, getting through them. And I want to thank you all for that. I want to thank my moderating staff. I saw that Louise X Sparrow is here. The Richard is here. Mike Bodden, of course. Joshua Levesque is here. Bunyan Snipe is here. We got a lot of people. I don't know how many people have been here for the whole time. Brian Hepburn, Bunyan. I said Bunyan from the UK. It must be late for you, Bunyan Snipe. I want to thank my mom. Mr. Derringer is here. My God, what a great group of moderators we have. I want to thank them for doing their great jobs. It's wonderful to have them. Thank you for everything you do for the community. There you go. And remember, every person you meet, you know what's funny? I'm going to be honest. I have a wine glass. I poured myself a beer to have for the show. I've been talking a mile a minute. I haven't had one sip of this. I have not imbibed. It's good. It's good. It's good. I'm triple. This is a triple beer. Anyway, it's really good. I can't believe I haven't been drinking this the whole time. I love you guys. I can talk about anything. Legends of the Galactic Heroes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe to movies. Best community on YouTube. Anyway, if you're a member, come over and we'll have the members only chat where we'll just talk. I just answer your questions and all that, and we just hang out. And I'll finish this beer. So anyway, give me like 5 minutes to get over there because I think aren't we like almost 40 minutes late? But anyway, thank you for being here. I will be back on the John Campea show. And we are going to have another Whining About Movies. We did all that jazz. We're going to do Bill Forsyth's Local Hero next with Burt Lancaster and Peter Riegert. A wonderful movie. Put out by Criterion on Blu-ray, by the way. And on that note, I will say, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. I mean, what do you think? Really? Should I keep it going? I mean, I think, it'd be kind of cool to have I love the Michael Lonsdale thing, especially like Michael Lonsdale in Ronin. That Michael Lonsdale, But I'm going to do something cool. I do want to go for the Simon Le Bon Wild Boys vibe. Before my birthday, maybe lose like 25 pounds, get my face a little thinner, and then work on my old man, middle-aged, crazy 80s vibe. I think that'd be kind of cool. Anyway, on that note, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say, have a better day, and I will see you over in the members chat shortly. I mean that sincerely.